I guess it was the Dana White story that sort of put our next guest on the radar for me.
Okay.
And it was when you saw Dana White, UFC president, just change his entire lifestyle and his body, right?
Right.
And then he came out to say...
Gary Brecka is a human biologist, and I met him through a longtime friend of mine. So I ended up finding out that he was a mortality expert. So he could tell you when you were going to die, and he would be right within a month or so. I became obsessed with this. So he finally talks me into coming out, and he starts going through my blood work, and he starts telling me everything that's wrong with me with no medical history whatsoever on me. Then he told me what was wrong with my parents, and he was right. And to say that this guy has changed my life is the understatement of the century.
He's changed millions of lives around the world. He's a human biologist, a biohacker, a researcher, anti-aging and longevity expert, and a good guy. It's the one and only Gary Brecka!
All right. Thank you, guys. Dude, live studio audience is such good energy in here.
So, welcome to the Kris Fade Show. Welcome to Virgin Radio. Good to have you here, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. What a beautiful city. What a beautiful country. I love this part of the world.
I love that you're here. I see you spending a little bit more time here, which is fantastic. Yeah. Once you have a little taste of this city and this country, sort of people are like, hold on a second, they're doing something out here that I think I want to be a part of, right?
Yeah. People have a misnomer about this around the world. I mean, it's the safest, cleanest, friendliest, modern city in the world. We absolutely love it. We actually just took a home here for a year because we plan to spend a lot more time on this side of the world.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay, so obviously you've worked with a lot of celebrities, but you're working with a lot of individuals. You're huge on social media. You've got a bunch of companies out. You're doing a lot. What are you drinking right now? That's what I want to know. What is Gary Brecka drinking?
Just a black coffee.
Straight black.
Black organic coffee.
Okay, black organic coffee.
Yeah, coffee, interestingly, is one of the primary sources of mold in the human body. So you get a toxin called ochratoxin. So it's really important to drink organic, mold-free coffee.
Stop this, Gary. Yeah. I have coffee every morning. I just take what I can get. So you can get mold, because we know mold. 100%. Mold is not a good thing for us, right? And I think
very true.
We live. A lot of our houses have mold, and we don't even know.
And this region of the world does have a lot of mold. Air filtration is absolutely important over here, and mold is one of those things that settles into the body, and it creates symptoms that we can live with. So it doesn't drive you to the ER. It doesn't get you out of bed and take you to the urgent care. But things like brain fog, fatigue, muscle aches. You get out of bed in the morning, the soles of your feet are sore and achy when you walk to the bathroom to take your first pee. You kind of wake up in the morning like you had a workout the night before when you haven't.
Stop it,
Gary.
Sounds like
all right.
Gary. That's me today. I have a sore foot.
Yeah,
the bottom of my foot.
So there's got to be. I'm someone who's a bit of a health hypochondriac, right? Like, so, and following you and your journey and all that, I became obsessed at one point. Like, I was obsessed, but I think I needed to take a step out. How do you find the balance in life where you live, quote unquote, a normal life?
Yes.
But at the same time, you want to look after yourself. Because, like, right now, the coffee bit is a big thing. Now, we wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do our show.
We can't survive without that coffee.
I order my coffee. It just comes here.
Well, maybe they're using organic. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they are conscious about that.
And so, like, you just, like, I guess going through life trying to make better choices or smarter choices is what you're trying to push as well, right?
Yes, but if you think about it, I mean, if you want to distill through all of the noise, right? Because the vast majority of people that are out there are supplementing for the sake of supplementing. They're not supplementing for deficiency. That's one of the cardinal rules that I preach, and we can talk about that. We can unpack that if you'd like. But, we have data. The big data is in on what extends life, right? And it's not as complicated as we think it is. And if you miss the basics, nothing else matters. I think the biggest mistake that people make on their health and longevity journey is they jump to the exotics, right? They want to go right into a red light bed or NADIVs, or they start taking exotic supplements. But the truth is, we know what extends life. There are 4 or 5 basic things that extend life. One is focus on your sleep. Sleep is a human superpower. If you're not sleeping... Uh-oh.
You're talking to morning radio presenters. Sleep is what we don't
go to bed early, guys.
Like at 5 p.m., it's not possible.
That's a possible thing. I'll take a nap during the day. 20-minute cat naps are great for you.
Gary, how many hours of sleep? Because there's a big thing here. Is it that the human body needs? And is it true that each person's different? Maybe Rossi needs 9 hours and I need 7. But what do we need to
There is some variation between sleep, but about 7 to 8 hours is usually what's required to get the deep and REM phases of sleep. And here's why sleep is so important. Everybody knows sleep is important, but the question is why. There are two particular phases of sleep that are critically important. One is called deep sleep, and deep sleep is important because during deep sleep, this is when the lymphatic system in the brain is active. So we have a lymphatic system in the body, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows
Yep.
about that because your throat swells when you get a sore throat, and your lymph nodes. Okay, so that's the waste elimination system in the body. In the brain, it's called the lymphatic system. This system is active during deep sleep. So when you're sleeping in the deep phase, your brain is literally eliminating waste, repairing, detoxifying, and regenerating. We know that sleep deprivation is linked to all forms of early onset cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, and neurodevelopmental disorders. I mean, Ronald Reagan used to brag about getting 5 hours of sleep.
And then
Went out with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Margaret Thatcher. She constantly bragged about having 5 to 5.5 hours of sleep.
Winston Churchill as well, yeah.
You know how they all went out?
Yeah.
Stop this, Gary.
So sleep is our human superpower. The other is movement. There's no exception for movement. I mean, and by movement, I don't mean you have to do complicated compound movements in a CrossFit workout. You need to, at a minimum, be just walking 30 minutes a day. We know that in all of the blue zones where you have hypercentenarianism, everybody was moving. So movement is critical. But, you know, the part that not a lot of people talk about, especially in my industry, because we're chasing supplements and modalities and anti-aging treatments, is we don't talk a lot about connection. You know, how connection is medicine. Community is medicine. Faith is medicine.
Yeah.
You know, faith is not just a journey towards the afterlife. Faith is medicine. You know, people that regularly engage in prayer, that actually have a strong sense of connection to their faith, they have a strong sense of connection to their community. These are the people that live the longest. That was actually a non-exchangeable in the blue zones. There was no continuity between diet. Okay, so let's just dispel that right now. I mean, it wasn't carnivore, keto, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food. There is not a dogmatic diet that extends life. When it comes to food, the absolute was the continuity between diets was no processed food. So if you look at all the blue zones in the world, Sardinia, highest carbohydrate consumption in the world, one of the longest life expectancies. You go to Singapore, highest meat consumption in the world, one of the longest life expectancies. The Mediterranean, you know, very high in fatty fish and fatty oils, very long life expectancy. And then the French came in and they messed up the whole model because they're smoking, drinking, eating cheese, and they're living past 100.
French.
The French. The heck with the French. You know?
So, I mean, and so what that then introduces...
So essentially, it's the absence of processed foods, right?
It's fresh. It's about eating fresh produce, right?
I mean, our ancestors really knew right. You know, what's funny about this whole anti-aging longevity space, it's truly coming full circle. We're getting back to the basics: sleep, movement, sense of community, sense of purpose, you know, and whole food diet. That's where you got to start.
What about air quality? Is that an important thing?
Air quality is also critically important. You know, I got asked a question the other day on a podcast. I thought it was a really fascinating question. And the host said, Gary, if you were to put the top 50 experts in the world in a room and ask them to agree on one theory of aging, just one, what would it be? And I really had to think about this, and I said, I think we would all agree on the theory of immunofatigue. And that's a fancy word for a slow, progressive overwhelming of the immune system. Okay. You know, and what I mean by that is we're really getting back to what God gave us and less of what man makes us. And so if we put our trust in our own human physiology, our immune system is the greatest defense that we have against disease and pathology. It is also the greatest tool to extend our lives. When you're an infant, your immune system is spending about 65% of its time policing yourself. Not protecting you from the outside world, not from viruses, parasites, pathogens. It's policing itself. It's monitoring everything going on in your body. If it sees a circulating tumor cell, it eats it. If it sees a cell that's not performing its function, which is called a senescent cell, it will dismantle that cell and break it up into energy. By the time we get into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, what happens is we've slowly sort of micropoisoned ourselves to death. You know, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, heavy metals, parasites, viruses, mold, mycotoxin. any one of these things the immune system can handle. But as we slowly begin to bathe our cellular biology in this toxic soup, then what happens is the immune system gets distracted, and then disease and pathology sets in. So when you look at where are the greatest advances in anti-aging and longevity, first, that you have to cover the basics. Next, we have to look at how do we support a healthy immune system. Things like dry sauna, sweating on a regular basis. Movement extends life, not because of you're moving, but because you're circulating your lymph system, which is eliminating waste. Sleep helps our body eliminate waste. Exercise helps our body eliminate waste. Hydration, which is another reason why I really focus on hydration, and I think that every human being listening to this should be taking a mineral salt, adding mineral salt to their water. I use one called Baja Gold, but you could use another mineral salt. Baja Gold has all 91 trace minerals. I think this is the cheapest biohack in the world. A $15 bag of this salt will last you 5 years, and it has all 91 trace minerals. If you woke up in the morning and just took an 8-ounce glass of water and you put all 9 of the essential amino acids into that water, I use one called Perfect Amino. You added a mineral salt. I use one called Baja Gold. Doesn't have to be either of these. I'm just telling you the ones I use. You added a mineral salt, and then you put in an elemental magnesium tablet, which effervesces into hydrogen gas, a hydrogen tablet. I use one called H2 Tab. And if you use that to start your day, you would not only hydrate, mineralize, get all of the electrolytes, you would get all of the essential amino acids, and you still haven't broken a fast. And that's what the body needs. You see, when you deprive the human body of certain raw material, you get the expression of disease. Whenever I do big stage talks, podcasts, lectures, or interviews, I will often make a very, very bold promise, and I will say, I will take any ailment that you or a loved one suffers from, anything. It can be ADD, ADHD, OCD, manic depression, it can be bipolar, it can be an autoimmune condition, and I will tell you what raw material is missing from that person's body that is causing that condition to exist. Because in human beings, when you deprive the human body of certain raw material, nutrients, you get the expression of disease. And you know what's funny? We believe this in plant physiology, right? If you had a leaf rotting in any of these palm trees out here, and you called a true arborist, a true botanist out to look at that leaf, they wouldn't even touch the leaf, right? They would core test the soil. Yeah. And they would say, you know what, Kris, there's no nitrogen in this soil. They would add nitrogen to the soil and the leaf would heal. Human beings are no different. When you deprive the human body of certain raw material, let's just go to amino acids, for example. Why are amino acids so important? Well, they don't just build muscle and connective tissue and natural killer cells. Amino acids are what we make neurotransmitters out of. And why is that important? Because neurotransmitters form all of our mood and all of our emotion. They drive our behavior. So a very simple example is there's an amino acid called tryptophan. It's very prevalent in turkey. So,
you have high doses, doesn't put you to sleep.
Yeah. That's why everybody falls asleep in the U.S.
The Seinfeld
for
episode.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You eat turkey, you just pass out. That's what we do for Thanksgiving in the U.S. So tryptophan is just an amino acid. It's one of the essential amino acids. Tryptophan, the body converts into the neurotransmitter serotonin. Well, the definition of depression is low serotonin. And so could you be suffering from depression because you are missing the nutrient tryptophan and your body can't make enough serotonin? Absolutely.
Interesting.
So very often what we diagnose and express as disease, pathology, autoimmune, hypertension, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid, type 2 diabetes, these conditions are not diseases that happen to us. They are conditions that happen within us. And just like taking nitrogen out of the soil and watching that leaf rot, if you take tryptophan out, you will see your mood change. If you take phenylalanine and tyrosine out, you'll see your behavior change. So you can trace all of these conditions that society is grappling with back to nutrient deficiencies.
There was a famous commercial in Australia, and that's what Gary, Gary.
Was it really? I need to get a copy of that.
I'll try to find it. I just bought a hyperbaric chamber. Good choice or bad choice?
Amazing choice.
Okay, great.
Yeah, amazing choice.
Because it was a big investment.
Yeah,
Worth
they're
it?
big investments. Yeah, it's soft chambers that only go to about 1.3 atmosphere, but hard chamber will take you all the way to 2 atmospheres.
It's a hard chamber.
Oh, excellent.
How long do I sit in that thing for?
It's about 60 minutes for 60 sessions, and then start to vary the pressure. So if you look at there's a great book written by Dr. Jason Saunders and Dr. Dimitri called Hyperbaric Medicine. And it's a little bit of a tough read, but just to distill it down for you, about 60 sessions at 2 atmospheres in whatever sequence. They don't have to be in a row. You don't have to do it 7 days a week until you get to 60. And then you want to start to vary the pressure a little bit. But hyperbaric medicine is amazing. I mean, we use it with our athletes. I'm actually the health services director for the NFL Alumni Association, so we use it a lot in repetitive use injuries: knees, hips, shoulders, rotator cuff, low back, and these are game changers for people with chronic pain, because a lot of the reason why chronic pain gets settled into a certain joint, like your rotator cuff or your low back, is because we cannot get oxygen to the site to help with the healing. Okay, and I have another saying that I've coined that, the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease.
There's oxygen, there's no disease.
If there's oxygen, there's no disease. Cancer sets up, in a hypoxic environment, right? And, a lot of, headaches come from the change in pH in our blood when we're low on oxygen. That changes the actual pH of our blood. So, in any case, great choice with the hyperbaric.
Okay, I love
You'll
it.
get me down the science road. You'll never stop me.
We have a lot of questions here, so we're going to try to run through them as quick as we possibly can, because I honestly,
so many.
The phones have exploded here, Gary.
Oh,
I'm sure
amazing.
everywhere you go, someone wants to ask you a question. This is their moment. So
Yes.
we're going to try to get as many as we possibly can on. Ross, did you want to ask yours before? Just real quickly,
no, not now, but I do want to show you my blood tests. I'll do that later on.
Okay, great. You don't want to ask about
the
He's
moment's
literally
gone,
got him
man.
up on his
Yeah,
phone.
I've got
I
it.
love
I'll
it.
talk to you afterwards. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Let's go Let's do this. Let's run as quick as we possibly can. Remy, you're on first with Gary Brecka. What's your question?
Hi, I wanted to know what's your take on intermittent fasting. Is it a healthy thing, and can it become a way of life? And if it's healthy, what is the ideal fasting time for women specifically?
Sure. So intermittent fasting, here's the take on intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not a one-size-fits-all. Some of the worst endocrine disasters I have ever seen in my career are young menstruating women that eat in too narrow of a feeding window. You can absolutely send your menstrual cycle into a tailspin. Men, for the most part, can intermittent fast without the same kind of consequences as women. So here's how you decide whether or not intermittent fasting is for you. You do a simple blood test. There's 3 markers that you want to look at. Glucose, which is the amount of blood sugar you have, the amount of sugar in your blood at the time of the test. Something called hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin A1C. This is a 90-day window of your blood sugar. And then your insulin. Because if you are already somebody who controls your blood sugar very well, your hemoglobin A1C is 5.2 or less. That means that a lot of the time that you spend, you are hypoglycemic, meaning you are low on blood sugar. If you intermittent fast, if you narrow your feeding window, you will spend too long of a time in a low glycemic state, low sugar state. And you know what happens? The pituitary gland perceives that as starvation, and it begins to throttle back your metabolism. Nothing is more frustrating for a young woman who is doing everything right. She's eating right, she's sleeping right, she's going to the gym, she's getting after it, and she actually starts to gain weight. And why is that? Because the body will retain water to try to save your life. So prolonged periods without eating can be mistaken by the body as starvation, and it will start to adjust your metabolism. So the marker you want to be above is 5.4 or higher on your hemoglobin A1C. And if your insulin is in the double digits, you are a candidate for intermittent fasting.
You're so good, Gary Brecka. Guys, we're going to put this obviously up as the podcast, and it's on recorded, so you guys will be able to, hopefully some of you are actually watching this in replay, writing this down. Pretty and Nala, you guys are writing this down. I like this. Now, Pretty, you have a family member that has Crohn's, right?
Yeah, so my nephew, from pretty much since he was born, has had Crohn's. And my brother-in-law, his father, was recently diagnosed a year ago with Crohn's as well. And it's been a really tough journey for my sister and trying to balance both. you're saying that it's not the medical that they need necessarily. We can kind of fix
Correct.
that in other ways.
And also, Gary, we've got Amanda on as well. Amanda, your question's related to Crohn's as well. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Gary, hey, what do you believe are the main underlying causes of the chronic inflammation in Crohn's patients?
So the main underlying cause is what we call leaky gut. So remember this, your intestinal tract is outside of your body. It is a tube that runs through your body, but it separates your external environment from your internal environment. Because it runs inside of us, we think that it's inside of our body. It's not. It's actually meant to keep your outside environment outside and your inside environment inside. Here's a critical fact. There is only a single cell layer, one cell layer, separating your inside environment from your outside environment. The luminal wall of the gut, inside lining of the intestinal tract, is only a single cell layer thick. When you get fissures, cracks, breaks, tears in that, this is called leaky gut. And when you get leaky gut, contents from inside of your intestinal tract are moving into an area of the body where they don't belong. This is what calls the immune system. So when you think of autoimmune disease, any of these autoimmune diseases, Hashimoto's, Sjogren's, Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, the first thing you have to ask yourself is what called the immune system? I am not someone that believes that you woke up one day and your immune system for no reason began to manufacture antibodies to your colon. So it just began to attack the colon for no reason. And if you're diagnosed with Crohn's, in 90% of the cases, you're diagnosed with something called idiopathic Crohn's disease, an idiopathic autoimmune disease. Idiopathic means of unknown origin. So again, to buy into that narrative, you have to agree that you just woke up one day and for no reason your immune system attacked your colon. Now you have Crohn's, or you attacked your thyroid and now you have Hashimoto's, attacked the lacrimal gland of the eye and now you have Sjogren's. I don't subscribe to that. What I believe is that the immune system was called to that location. So what are the things that call the immune system to the site of the colon? Primarily, number one is something called leaky gut. The vast majority of these patients have a gene mutation called MTHFR. You may want to write that down. MTHFR. What this gene mutation does is it impairs the ability for the body to convert folate and folic acid into the form the body can use. Why is that important? Because this changes the pace of the gut. We have to think about the intestinal tract as a 30-foot-long conveyor belt, and the pace of that conveyor belt is very, very important. When people have Crohn's disease, they look at food allergies, food sensitivities, their gut microbiome, and they go down this road for years before realizing it has nothing to do with what they're eating. It has nothing to do with the gut microbiome. Once they've done that testing, it has to do with the speed of the gut. So people that have Crohn's disease will have very irregular bowel function. So they will have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, and cramping. And they'll have this intermittently. So what we need to do is first we need to bind toxins. So we need to actually bind the histamines that are in the gut, and we need to carry them out of the body. When modern medicine actually tries to put anti-inflammatories into the bloodstream to lower histamines, you need to bind them in the gut and carry them out. One of my favorite products, and I have no affiliation with this company, is something called Toxi Prevent, Toxi Prevent. And Toxi Prevent has a lower GI formula. These are binders, right? Binders are things like activated charcoal, silica, and they bind histamines and carry them out of the gut. The second thing that's really important is healing and sealing the gut. We have to repair that single cell layer. One of the best ways to do that is to take a peptide called BPC 157.
I'm taking that.
Great. Body protection compound.
I've been on that
157.
for 4 months. Yeah.
That's actually a gastric pentadecapeptide, meaning it is actually a peptide synthesized from gastric juice.
It does. I feel my gut's better.
Oh, it's going to make your gut amazingly better. The other supplement that's really important in Crohn's patient is magnesium, because magnesium helps restore threonate, glycinate, citrate, helps restore the proper peristaltic activity and return the pace of the gut back to normal. So first, bind histamines. Second, heal and seal the gut. And then you will see the immune system calm down. This happens so often. Once you subscribe to the fact that you have a chronic condition, I can get you to subscribe to a lifetime of medication. I'm just going to touch on thyroid just for a second because it's important to this discussion. So in the human body, if you were to look for 4 things, okay, mold mycotoxin, parasite, virus, heavy metal. mold, mycotoxin, parasite, virus, heavy metal. These are the little invaders that very often call the immune system to different areas of the body. So, for example, the thyroid has an affinity for heavy metals. So when you get heavy metal overload, it has a tendency to gravitate to the thyroid. What happens when you have heavy metals in the thyroid? It calls the immune system to the thyroid because the immune system is hypervigilant, right? It's after a perpetrator. So I want you to think about what would happen if somebody robbed a bank down the street and ran into your house and barricaded themselves in your house. The police would bust down that door to get to the perpetrator. Okay, the immune system is no different. It's hypervigilant, just like those police officers. When heavy metals embed themselves inside your cell, it will bust down the door, break the cell wall, to get it to that heavy metal. It is not after your cell, it's after the perpetrator. That police officer wasn't trying to destroy your home, they were trying to get to the perpetrator. When the immune system reaches the door, the cell wall, it doesn't have permission to come inside. How does it go after the perpetrator if it can't get inside the house, get inside the cell? It manufactures an antibody to that cell wall. And so now we start blaming the immune system for something that the perpetrator did. I hope you're grasping that.
You're so good. There's so many messages coming in on WhatsApp. We've actually run out of time. I will be catching up with Gary on a longer form content soon, which I'll let you guys know of. But even my WhatsApp is just, can you answer these in like 20 seconds?
Okay.
And I'll go quick
fast.
Fire with you.
Yes.
Because you're so good. By the way, Gary,
I know,
round of applause. You're
Yes.
amazing.
I'm just writing things
I love the way
down.
you speak as well, but my WhatsApp's blown up. My buddy Bruce, the methane stuff, the blue stuff, good? Yeah,
methylene blue. Yes, take methylene blue when you're using red light. Don't take it prophylactically. 0.5 milligrams to 2 milligrams. Don't exceed 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. It actually works very well in low doses, as low as 0.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight.
Okay, Marta says one supplement that you can't live without.
Absolutely H2 tab. It is a elemental magnesium tablet that effervesces into hydrogen gas. I cannot live without that.
Okay, Ashan says my son has a nerve problem, a foot issue, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yeah, Guillain-Barré. Guillain-Barré is a neuropathic condition that usually starts at the periphery, works its way to the trunk, and then eventually spontaneously resolves. I would be focusing on circulation. Think about this. I could give anyone in this room right now peripheral neuropathy just by putting a tourniquet on your arm. If I put a tourniquet on your forearm, you would have peripheral neuropathy in this hand in 15 minutes. In an hour, I could pinch the top of your hand and you wouldn't even feel it. Nothing wrong with the nerves in that arm. What would happen if I took the tourniquet off? The nerve sensation would return. This is very often a vascular circulation issue. So I would focus on contrast therapy, resveratrols to restore proper circulation to those areas. Anything, red light therapy is also very, very, very good for these conditions because it helps with vasomotor circulation.
Are you setting up here in the country? Are we going to be able to get more involved with what you're doing here?
I am. You can go to my website, theultimatehuman.com. I actually have a VIP community there.
You name that after me, by the way, guys. Just to let you all know. You didn't know.
I was so inspired by you, Chris.
Thanks.
That I just
Sure.
Yeah. So theultimatehuman.com. You can go to theultimatehuman.com/VIP. That's where we can continue this conversation. I do live conversations there. I do private podcasts. I have all kinds of guides in that community. A 10-month course to becoming the ultimate human. Guides for heavy metal, mold detoxification, autoimmune.
Wow.
A little outside the mainstream thinking of modern medicine.
It's cool, though. I like it. TheUltimateHuman.com has all your details.
Yes.
He is a legend. Gary Brecka, thanks for spending some time with us, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It always feels so short.
But you could literally sit and talk
Yeah, I know,
for hours.
forever.
And you're so. One thing I think you've mastered the art of is not only knowing the information, is explaining, and that's the hardest part. And you do that so well, man. So thank you so much for hanging out with us on Virgin Radio. Once again, Gary Brecka, thank you.